Hey Nakamas, today we're going to answer some of the common questions I get being a Japanese and English bilingual. So most of these comments are from my TikTok channel at here. Let's get started with the first question. How did you learn English and Japanese? So first off, Japanese. I was born in Japan and raised in the great city of Osaka, the second biggest city in Japan, right after Tokyo. A lot of people know Tokyo, because of how famous and popular it is, but Osaka has its perks. One thing is people are sort of nicer, but they're definitely more chill. Like they'll actually talk to you, and which is really rare in Japan. In Tokyo, they don't really want to interact with you as much. They might try to ignore you, but in Osaka, if you're lucky, they'll say something, which will be a big accomplishment for you. Going on a tangent, I think the main problem is they're not really good at speaking English. So that's the main hesitancy if they see you in the streets of Japan. But you know what? The Osaka natives, because they're more chill and a little bit more outgoing, they might say hi. Maybe even in Japanese, they might say something to you. So I recommend always going to Osaka as well as Tokyo. I understand why you have to go to Tokyo, but you should go to Osaka. But anyways, growing up in Osaka, I went to the kindergarten there and the elementary school. It's public school, so obviously I was with the natives. And I literally learned Japanese there, but of course my family's Japanese too, so I learned it in my house and at school and wherever I went. One thing to know, Osaka Ben, it's like an accent in Japan. It's like if you hear nen, nande ya nen, chau yaro, there's a lot of other things added to it, but I don't have as much of a thick Osaka Ben or Osaka accent. There's a lot of different other accents that exist that you should be aware of. But another thing, I think the best Japanese street food, okonomiyaki, takoyaki, yakisoba. That's another reason why you should visit there, along with Tokyo. And you should probably go to Kyoto too. How did you learn English? So in a couple of summers, I also visited the US for like summer camps and stuff. So that's why my pronunciation is decent. And then from middle school on, I actually lived permanently in the US. So that's when I actually learned how to write in English and speak in English with my peers. I remember the first time I wrote an essay. I don't know how, but I knew how to spell and write a sentence, but the main thing that was missing was spaces. I didn't know spaces was so necessary because in Japanese you don't need spaces between words. So I handed my teacher an essay. I don't think it made any sense, but it really didn't make any sense when he looked at my essay and had no space, and he was very, very upset. I remember I had to write it all over again, and I discovered how important spaces were in English. So I've come a long way. I have. Never mind the silent I's and E's sometimes. But overall, because I visited the US when I was younger, and I've been here since middle school, that's how I could speak both Japanese and English. In my house, I still speak Japanese. Second question, do you think in Japanese or English? So I would say when I was growing up, it was mostly strictly Japanese. I would think in Japanese, I would eat in Japanese, watch anime in Japanese. I mean, basically, it was all Japanese. Since middle school on, I think it has changed, and right now it's definitely depending on the environment and the context. If I'm writing an essay now in English, I could think strictly in English. But because I still speak Japanese in my house, a decent part is still from Japanese, but living in the US made it more flexible. So I could speak the way I'm speaking right now. Because I'm bilingual in both Japanese and English, I think I'm able to decently translate English to Japanese or Japanese to English. That's not really easily translatable. I think one of the things I've already made a video on is like yameda, which literally means I have stopped. When Bushido said it in Jujutsu Kaisen, it was screw it, but it could be like I'm done with it, forget it, you know. So those kind of like indirect translations, I'm able to understand it more because I'm pretty much native in both, so that I know what they actually mean, like what they're actually trying to say, feeling wise. Some of my grammar's messed up, but one thing I noticed since middle school, anime blew up, and a lot of people got interested in learning Japanese. But what's popular, what's growing, is definitely the anime-ese or the anime phrases like nani, bakana, kamona, tatakai. I understand why learning Japanese is way harder, but learning anime phrases is a good start. And if I hear it in the US, it's actually pretty interesting and entertaining. But hopefully you can learn a little bit more grammar so you can formulate a sentence. But I'll help you out with that. Do you dream in Japanese or English is actually another common question. So of course when I'm in my nice REM rapid eye movement, sleep. I think basically when I'm talking to my Japanese friends, I'm speaking in Japanese, and when I'm talking to my American friends, I'm speaking English. But one thing that happened was we were all gathering in a group in my dream with both my Japanese and English American friends, and they were able to speak to each other, even though I know for sure my Japanese friends cannot speak English, and I know for a fact my American friends can't speak Japanese. But in my dream, they were able to communicate with each other, which, it'd be like that. But what about dreaming personally? I think it depends on the context. If I'm like binge watching anime and I'm in Attack on Titan, then you better bet I'm talking to Captain Levi in Japanese. Levi 兵長、日本語で喋って、リヴァイ兵長と一緒に巨人を駆逐するために心臓を捧げてるに決まってるから。So, but like, if I'm just walking around in the streets of America, then I'm probably thinking English. Keeping up with Japanese. So I still speak Japanese in my house, and I watch basically Japanese media in Japanese, obviously without subtitles. So that's how I'm keeping up with Japanese. But one thing that I'm slacking for sure is definitely the kanji. I'll admit that kanji, I could read most of them, but writing them, it's really a big difference between reading and writing them. I think anyone who tried learning them understands that. But the thing is, most kanjis are commonly used, so you don't really have to memorize all the kanji, obviously. So if you know the basic of it, you could kind of guess what it means too. But if you want to be a adult, fully functioning, well-educated adult in Japan, you should know up until high school kanji, which I don't know. But I could read decently, I think, hopefully till at least middle school. But verbally, I know that I'm able to communicate fine. I don't think it's declined yet. So that's a big two, verbal and written. So those are the common questions. If you have any other new questions, please let me know. And I'm going to actually be posting on YouTube more. So I know this one was a little bit boring per se, but hopefully you get to know me a little bit better. And if you have any Japanese questions, don't be afraid to ask. I am willing to help. Some translations I get, it's a little funky. So, but no, don't be afraid to ask, because I realize how difficult Japanese is. So maybe a little help or a little encouragement is gonna go a long way for you all. And maybe you could escape the anime phrases hole you might have put yourself in. So good luck, and see you in the next video.